We also welcome now Reverend Dr. Chrysostom Koutloumousianos, a senior brother and priest monk at Holy Monastery of Koutloumousi, Mount Athos, a senior fellow at the Cambridge Institute for Orthodox Christian Studies. He is currently working on a comparative study of St. Romanos the Melodist and John Donne. His recent concentrations upon patristics and the spirituality of Greek and Celtic monasticism. We welcome Father.
Σεβασμιότατε, dear brothers and sisters, compare a pebble cast away in a remote desert, exposed to the heat, with a pebble among others on the bank of a river. The former is sharp, coarse, and pale. The latter is smooth and brightly colored, because of that very friction with the other stones in the flowing water. I heard this metaphor from a recently canonized holy hermit of Mount Athos, St. Paisius, who wished to figuratively indicate to me the value of cenobitic communal life. Is it not strange that the blessings of communal life are most fervently praised by solitaries? It is because these holy men have reached the state of being separated from all and united with all. It is in this sense that a monastic has been called monadic and triadic at the same time, alone with God, even within a crowd, and in indissoluble union with the whole of creation. These are the two sides of his or her existence. For separation from all and union with all are not different ways and options of spiritual life, but the one single way to the divine life. Sorry, I'm a senior monk, but a novice in PowerPoint. Okay, no. Yeah. Thank you. According to patristic teaching, the mystery of the Church is signified on two levels, the internal and the external, linked in a causal nexus. The Church is the image and likeness of man, and conversely, man is a mystical church. It follows that the unity of the ecclesial body is to be pursued on both levels. Unity, as well as its reverse, is a twofold reality. In its external dimension, it is the unity of the members of the body of Christ. In its internal aspect, it is the union of the soul with Christ, and more precisely, the unification and divinization of the natural powers of the soul around God. The unity of the congregation is not something imposed from above. It is the outcome of the internal unity of each member. Correspondingly, external schisms are rooted in internal divisions. The gift of perfect unity was accomplished in God incarnate. Having united the created and the uncreated within him, he became the head of the body, and we the limbs. Through the uncreated grace that permeates this body, we experience the mystery of unity, and we become one with everyone. But the gift is also a requirement. To be united with creation and the Creator means to be united with yourself. And you cannot be united with yourself unless you have reached a state of self-knowledge. The knowledge of your true self, not the artificial person you have contrived to be over the years. This knowledge has two levels. First, the knowledge of rusts and deformity, namely individual passions, deficiencies, or any foreign motion generated by syndromes or minor disorders, terrors and obsessions. Such awareness helps you put everything in its right place within your soul, overcoming illusions and avoiding blind behavior and vain, deceitful performances. The second and deeper level is the perception of Christ as the image of God within the soul. Put otherwise, Christ as your very true self, and at the same time as the inextricable bond with the whole of creation. When this is rediscovered and restored, you know yourself as the image of the incarnate Logos, the perfect God and perfect man. Only if you know yourself as being created and destined by God, can you truly know and be one with yourself. Thus, unity begins with the slaughter of the sundering passions and the offering up of our natural faculties, the faculties that constitute and determine our very life and personality, namely intelligence, incentive power, and desire. From the redirection of those essential powers comes the threefold manifestation of unity, which is that of humility, simplicity, and love. The whole course of spiritual life is a progress in purification from selfish illusions to reaching the state of love, humility, and simplicity. We are in a realm where one can hardly separate the internal from the external reality. Let us take up first love. No monk is an island, to paraphrase John Donne. No monk is a singular hero pursuing supernatural heights. A monk belongs to Christ. He is a member of the body. God urges him on with both his love and the love of the neighbor, says St. Porphyrios. And for the monk to enter into the church means something more than the reception of an identity. It means to rise above the atomist outlook, to unite oneself with one's fellow men, with their joys and sorrows, to respond to the needs of others, forgetting about one's own, and to be sealed with Christ's prayer to the Father that they may all be one. As already said, the monastic way is both solitary and communal. Christ is the bridegroom, and each individual soul is the bride. And yet, or rather because of that, the constant longing of the monk, even the most remote hermit, is to become one with others, just as the three persons of the Holy Trinity are one. Since, according to St. Porphyrios, the divine persons constitute the uncreated church, the Trinity presents a certain perception of the church and the place of each one within it. Not that the Trinity and the church have the same mode of being, or that we know the mode of being of the Trinity. However, the consubstantial Trinity gives us the paradigm. We, as hypostasis in the oneness of human nature, have one undivided natural will and energy. This is the meaning of the unity of the Church after the image of the Trinitarian divinity. It is the second great commandment, love your neighbor as yourself, which guides us into the mystery of the consubstantial Trinity. The observance of this commandment leads humanity to become one single human being, restoring its fragmented consubstantiality. This means that love must surpass its personal, whimsical aspect and find its essential, natural character. When the heart is entirely given to God, then human love melts into the furnace of divine love and becomes deified, says St. Porphyrius. Such love, which has the character of totality and infinity, cannot be confined and walled up either within a heart, a house, an organization, or a nation. It becomes a Catholic consciousness, a flame that embraces everything. If there are barbed wires on the borders of Orthodox Christians, St. Paisius warns, it reveals our thorny spiritual state. And he explains, we forget that according to the flesh, we are children of Adam, and according to the Spirit, children of Christ. If such priceless love existed, one would see and feel the other as his brother. Inasmuch as the fruit of the Spirit is love, Christ, Christians would cease even paying attention to genders by making distinctions according to the flesh, for they would see everything as pure and holy and would be clothed with the grace of God. Monastic withdrawal and renunciation leads to this universal love by extending the borders of family ties to endorse an undivided love, equally given to everyone, for we are all children of Eve, of the large family of Adam, of God. However fervently did those elders love and pray for their motherlands, they would strongly disapprove as foul and repulsive those ideologies which identify ethnic or cultural identities with the Orthodox faith. Needless to say, for those elders, all forms of aggression, violence, antagonism, and excessive zeal are passion-driven, imprudent, and deplorable. On the holy mountain, said St. Porphyrius, the spirit in which I was nurtured was orthodox, profound, holy, and silent, without conflicts, without disputes, and without censuring. The second manifestation of unity is humility. Humility is to know your place in the world and your connection with and dependence on the world, as well as your Maker. It is to stand before the omnipotent, loving, and humble God. This means that rejection of all self-interest and the cultivation of gentleness in prayer as well as in social conduct. Humility makes you as the invisible wind that moves silently, as selfless as the song of the nightingale in the untrodden forest, secret, but with no less passion, exaltation, and longing. Humility is the measure of pure love, producing compassion in the depths of the heart. As such, it is deeply transformative, the imitation of the humble earth, which, while it is stepped on by everyone, uplifts everyone with its love and nurtures them with affection. It quietly converts anything we throw away, good fruit as well as food waste, into vitamins. A humble human being is kind and loving, says St. Paisius, and such kindness makes the earth blossom. This teaching is verified in the elders' lives. Sharing the pain of others, St. Paisius, while suffering himself from serious illnesses, would say in his prayers, "Christ, do not care for me. Look after those who are in agony." This expansion of the heart makes humility the antidote to both depression and dysfunction, insofar as these are rooted in self-centeredness and unsatisfied egotistic desires. For this reason, humility is stable equilibrium and peacefulness, immune to darkening irritation, censure, resentment, or wrath. The saints hold fast throughout their lives onto humility because they embrace everyone and everything. It is then that the light of divine grace shines in the inner man, showing forth not the tatters of unity, but the complete love and oneness that flows from the divinity. This is why humility is considered to be more wondrous than the working of miracles or even the raising of the dead. The third manifestation of unity is simplicity. The Greek, English, and Latin languages use the same word to convey this meaning. The adjective symbol applous in Greek derives from the verb applo, which means to unfold, to stretch out, and consequently to render something open and floodlit, whole and integral, without folds and creases or dark and hidden places. To be simple is to be single, natural, plain. The opposite is to become duplex, double-faced, mixed with contradictions and conflicts. Simplicity is neither indiscretion nor childish behavior, which is a sign of immaturity, nor impudence, which is a product of a devious heart. To reach the condition of true simplicity, we have to purify our heart from all traces of cunning and self-interest in order to attain generosity and magnanimity. This is much more than a negative effort. It means participation in God's nature through God's holy fire. That is, his multiple energies or virtues. Divine energies, virtues, or activities are God himself calling his creatures to divine simplicity. The divine light draws together and unites those whom it enlightens, converting them from a multiplicity of opinions. It unites their varied points of view, or more accurately, their fantasies, into one simple and pure knowledge, filling them with a single unifying light. The faculties of their souls, that is, intelligence, insensitive power, and desire, are concentrated and unified around the divine simplicity. Their souls and bodies united in spirit, from which love uncreated arises. Thus, perfect virtues, which are properties of God's simple and uncompounded nature, make the human being a partaker of the divine simplicity and oneness. Guileless simplicity is the natural will of our being. From our undivided nature springs one will, common to us, to all of us, predisposed toward God. This is a natural power which desires what is in accordance with nature, a natural appetite corresponding with the nature of the rational creature, a natural spontaneous movement of the self-determining mind. It brings us to the one logos of nature in one gnomi, because the logos of nature is infused with love, with agape. When we find and follow this natural will, this natural mode of desiring and willing, we become simple, that is, one with our fellow human beings and one with our soul. When our natural energies are totally redirected to God, then, through the grace of God, all passions turn, transfigured as they are, to love, joy, longing, and divine eros. Thus water becomes wine. But if our reason, will, and emotion are subject to carnal senses, the law of nature is replaced by self-love. Now, a practical method needs to be applied for attaining this state of unity. This method includes the whole of spiritual life: prayer, worship, participation in the Eucharist, reading and mindful meditation, spiritual guidance, works of love, self-denial, and the whole range of ascesis. We need to insist on the unity of spiritual life. Orthodox consciousness does not recognize the splitting up of spiritual life into ascetic, mystical, and liturgical spheres. Much less does it abide by the artificial division held by some between a monastic theology characterized as therapeutic and a Eucharistic theology in which one seeks to find the locus of unity in a specific act. The dimensions of spiritual life, namely the liturgical, the ascetic, and the mystical or hesychastic, are in total coherence. And the locus of unity is the Holy Spirit that reveals Christ within one's heart, in the liturgy and everywhere, as the place and container of all. Because the Spirit holds together the whole institution of the Church, gushing forth prophecy, perfecting priesthood, and teaching wisdom and theology, provided that one lives in the atmosphere of prayer and watchfulness. Why is grace not given exclusively in the Holy Liturgy, asks Elder Ephraim of Koutloumousianos. Pondering on the unpredictability of divine activity, well, we cannot judge God's will. The elders stood in awe, joy, and trembling during the Eucharistic mystery. St. Paisius would not sit even when he was extremely ill and spitting up blood. But they knew that the sacrament cannot be a theophany unless one's whole existence is, in the broadest sense, Eucharistic. As St. Porphyrio says, we are all one because God is our Father and is everywhere. When we experience this, we are in the Church. Unity, the most profound expression of the freedom of the Spirit, is not uniformity and sameness. It transcends an externally imposed worldly order of discipline to encompass the disorder of the freedom of the Spirit. The sameness and the difference, the regular and the spontaneous, the plurality of personal rhythms and gifts, though not the plurality of faiths and selfish opinions. This flexibility has found its way into monastic life and ritual and has produced the spirit of economy in the Orthodox tradition. Now, the holy man becomes an exemplar of unity, remaining in himself in an ever-moving repose, a movement generated round that which is one, unique, and always the same. There are other worldly manifestations of this unity. The more one participates in God's life, the more the divine light is manifest and acts in created nature. Often life, the world, and the three dimensions of time are unified and condensed in a single ray before human eyes that have been transfigured. This light is revealed as pure goodwill from above, with an unending variety of energy within it. And finally, it fills the whole man, making him all light. But the alteration of physical senses in order to participate in the divine glory comes from the burgeoning of inner illumination. The light works on the mind, the heart, and the body, quietly and gently, bringing humble love and union with all. In this state, one senses the unity of all in God's grace. His voice becomes the voice of humanity, and the whole universe is seen as a cathedral vault with brazen candle stands. A quotation from St. Porphyrius. At the same time, his transformed soul mystically radiates the same grace and thus passes on peace and warmth to all beings. I will end with the words of St. Porphyrius, urging prayer as the natural condition and essential activity of the human being. Pray for the church, for the world, for everyone. Your desire must be for the world to be sanctified. Then you enter into the church and you live in the joy of paradise. You live with God because the whole fullness of divinity dwells in the church. We are all one body with Christ as the head. Our faith has this magnificent quality of uniting the world spiritually. Christ is the center. All moves towards the center and are united in one spirit and one heart. Something like this happened at Pentecost. Love, worship of God, desire, union with God and union with the church constitute paradise on earth. This is the monadic and triadic road to unity as lived and taught in the monastic world from yore until this very day. Thank you.